Marcus Hayes didn't look at the address until he was already halfway through his shift. Thursday nights in Palo Alto were usually predictable. Salads to tech workers burning midnight oil, Thai food to Stanford students, the occasional late-night ice cream run. But when the notification pinged at 9:47 p.m., something about the street name made his stomach tighten. Atherton. Not just Atherton. That part of Atherton, where driveways were longer than city blocks and gates had intercoms with cameras that probably cost more than his car. Marcus had been delivering food for Dash Quick for 11 months, ever since the layoffs at the community college where he'd taught introductory computer science. Adjunct positions didn't come with security, and when enrollment dropped, he was the first to go. At 34, he'd gone from Professor Hayes to your driver Marcus in the time it took to clean out his desk. The order was simple: 2 lobster rolls, truffle fries, a bottle of sparkling water. Restaurant, Coastal and Kamatsu, total 187, not including tip. Marcus had learned not to expect much from the wealthy addresses. The bigger the house, the smaller the gratuity, as if proximity to that much money made individual dollars meaningless. He pulled up to the gate at 10:03 p.m. The house beyond wasn't just large. It was architectural, all glass and sharp angles, lit from within like a museum exhibit. The intercom crackled before he could press the button. "Food delivery," Marcus said to the camera. "Gates opening, drive up to the main entrance." The voice was younger than he expected, casual. The gates swung inward with expensive silence, and Marcus drove up a driveway lined with mature oak trees, their branches creating a tunnel that ended at a circular courtyard. Motion sensor lights flicked on as he parked. He grabbed the insulated bag and walked to the front door, which opened before he could knock. The man standing there was maybe 40, barefoot despite the October chill, wearing jeans and a wrinkled button-down with the sleeves rolled up. His hair stuck up in several directions. Marcus recognized him immediately. Anyone who'd spent time in the tech world would. David Chen, founder and CEO of Axiom Systems, worth somewhere north of $8 billion, according to the last Forbes estimate. "Marcus?" Chen glanced at his phone, confirming the driver's name. "That's me." Marcus held out the bag. "Lobster rolls and—" "Come in for a second." Chen stepped back, gesturing into the house. Every delivery driver knew the unspoken rules. "Don't go inside. Hand over the food, thank them for any tip, leave." Marcus hesitated, but Chen was already walking into the house, assuming he'd follow. And when a billionaire tells you to come in, you come in. The entryway opened into a massive living room with 20-foot ceilings. But what stopped Marcus wasn't the architecture or the view of the bay through floor-to-ceiling windows. It was the whiteboard. It dominated the far wall, 12 feet wide, covered in code. Not just any code. Python, from what Marcus could see, but dense, complex, with nested functions and algorithms he couldn't pass at a glance. Sections were crossed out, rewritten. Some parts were annotated with angry question marks. "My lead developer quit today," Chen said, setting the food bag on a kitchen island that probably cost more than Marcus made in a year. "Just walked out. 3 months before our major launch, and he's gone. I've been trying to fix this all day, and I can't—" He stopped, seeming to realize he was talking to a delivery driver about problems that meant nothing to him. "Sorry. Long day. You want something to drink?" "I'm good, thanks." Marcus should have left. The app would dock him points for taking too long. But his eyes kept drifting back to the whiteboard, to a particular section in the middle where the logic seemed to loop back on itself incorrectly. Chen followed his gaze. "You code." "Used to teach it. Computer science. Nothing like this, though. Intro courses, mostly. Used to. Budget cuts." Marcus said it matter-of-factly. No point in the whole story. Chen walked over to the whiteboard, staring at it with the exhausted frustration of someone who'd been hitting their head against the same wall for hours. This algorithm is supposed to optimize data routing across distributed networks. It worked in testing, but now it's creating bottlenecks instead of eliminating them. 5 people have looked at it. 5 people who make $300,000 a year couldn't find the problem. Marcus should have left. He had 4 more deliveries waiting, and his acceptance rate was already down to 87%. But something about the code pulled at him, the same way crossword puzzles had when he was younger, the same way chess problems did late at night, when he couldn't sleep. "Can I—" He stopped himself. What was he doing? He delivered food now. He wasn't a developer. He wasn't anyone who mattered in this world, but Chen was looking at him with something that might have been curiosity or might have been desperation. "Can you what? Can I take a picture? Just to look at later. I probably can't help, but understand this code and I'll pay you." Chen said it lightly, half joking, the way rich people joked about money because it was infinite to them. "Hell, I'll pay you better than whatever Dashquick is giving you." Marcus pulled out his phone, snapped a photo of the whiteboard. The whole time, a voice in his head was screaming that he was wasting time, that this was fantasy, that delivery drivers didn't solve Billionaire's problems. But another voice, quieter, the one that used to love teaching, that used to stay late helping students debug their code, that voice said, "Look at line 47. "The nested loop," Marcus said, the words coming out before he could stop them. "Line 47. You're iterating over the same data set twice, but the second iteration isn't accounting for the mutations from the first. It's not a logic error, it's a timing issue." Chen turned slowly from the whiteboard to Marcus. "What?" "The bottleneck. It's not in the algorithm itself. It's in how the algorithm is interacting with your data structure. You're modifying the list while you're still reading from it. In testing, with smaller data sets, the timing didn't matter, but at scale—" Marcus stopped. Chen was staring at him like he'd started speaking a different language. "Sorry, I should go. I have other deliveries." "Say that again." Chen's voice had changed. The casual exhaustion was gone, replaced by sharp focus. "The timing issue. Explain it again," Marcus explained, and as he talked, Chen pulled out his laptop, typing rapidly, his eyes moving between the screen and Marcus's face. When Marcus finished, Chen ran something, a test probably, and they both watched the terminal output scroll past. Chen let out a sound that was half laugh, half groan. "It's been 8 hours. 8 hours. And you saw it in, what, 30 seconds? I might be wrong. You're not wrong. Look." Chen turned the laptop around. The bottleneck graphs had flattened. Whatever Marcus had identified, it had worked. "You just saved me weeks of development time. Maybe the entire launch timeline." Marcus felt something unfamiliar in his chest. Not pride exactly, but recognition. The feeling of being seen for what he could do, not for what circumstance had made him. It had been 11 months since anyone had looked at him that way. "I wasn't joking," Chen said, "about paying you. What's Dashquick giving you per delivery? $15? 20? Depends on the order. This one's about 12, probably, after they're cut." Chen pulled out his phone, tapped a few times. Marcus's phone buzzed. Notification. "David Chen has tipped you $5. Marcus stared at the screen. $5? That's not... It's less than I'd pay the consultant I would have called tomorrow. Consider it a finder's fee." Chen was already moving to the whiteboard, erasing a section, rewriting it. "But I meant what I said. You want a job? Real job, not delivery. I need someone who can see what 5 senior developers couldn't." The offer hung in the air between them. Marcus thought about his studio apartment in Redwood City, about the notification from his landlord that morning about rent increasing another $200. He thought about his daughter, Simone, 13, and living with his ex-wife in Sacramento, whom he saw every other weekend when he could afford the gas. He thought about the PhD application he'd abandoned 3 years ago because adjunct salaries didn't cover both rent and graduate school. "I don't have the experience for whatever you're building," Marcus said. "I taught basics, loops, functions, object-oriented fundamentals. He gestured at the whiteboard, "this is beyond what I've done. You just debugged it." I got lucky. I saw one thing. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity. Someone told me that once. You prepared yourself, probably for years, teaching and learning and staying sharp, even when the world told you that teaching Intro CS wasn't important. And tonight, opportunity walked through my door, carrying lobster rolls. Chen looked at him directly. "I'm not offering you charity. I'm offering you a job because I think you're good at this, maybe great at this. But if you don't want it, that's fine too. Keep the $5,000 either way." Marcus's phone buzzed. 3 delivery requests waiting. If he didn't accept soon, the algorithm would start sending them to other drivers. His shift wasn't over until midnight. "I need to think about it," Marcus said. "Fair enough. But think fast. I'm serious about the timeline. I need someone Monday morning." Marcus left the house in a daze, the $5, who drove 0 tip, burning in his mind like a question he couldn't answer. He sat in his car in that expensive circular driveway for 2 full minutes before accepting the next delivery. As he drove away, watching the gate close behind him in his rearview mirror, he couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had just shifted, that the floor he'd been standing on for 11 months had suddenly dropped away. By the time he got home at 1:15 a.m., he'd completed 6 more deliveries and earned another $73. The contrast made him almost laugh. He sat on his bed, still in his Dash Quick jacket, and pulled up the photo he'd taken of the whiteboard. The code looked different now, not impossible, not beyond him, just work. Complex work, sure, but work he could do, work he wanted to do. His phone rang, unknown number but with a 650 area code. Palo Alto. "Marcus, it's David Chen. Listen, I know I said think about it, but I'm going to sweeten the deal. 140,000 dollars salary to start. Full benefits, and I'll pay for you to finish your graduate degree if you want it. Night classes, online, whatever works. I looked you up after you left, saw you were halfway through a master's before you had to stop. If you're serious about this field, I'll make sure you can be serious about it." Marcus closed his eyes. $140 $1. He currently made about $32 delivering food, and that was with 60-hour weeks. With that salary, he could move closer to Sacramento. He could see Simone more than twice a month. He could stop calculating gas money every time he wanted to drive somewhere. "Why?" Marcus asked. "You don't know me. You don't know if I can actually do this. I know you saw something 5 people making 6 figures missed. I know you taught yourself to keep learning, even when the system told you teaching wasn't valuable. And I know what it's like to be underestimated. I dropped out of college. Every investor in Silicon Valley told me I'd fail because I didn't have the right pedigree. Turned out, pedigree doesn't mean shit if you can't solve problems." Marcus thought about the whiteboard, about the moment he'd seen the error, the clarity of it, about how long it had been since he'd felt that clarity about anything. "Monday morning," Marcus said. "What time?" The Axiom Systems office occupied 3 floors of a glass building in downtown Palo Alto, the kind of place where the lobby had a coffee bar and the receptionist knew everyone's drink order. Marcus arrived at 8:45 a.m. on Monday, wearing his only suit, bought 6 years ago for academic conferences he no longer attended. The pants were a little tight. The jacket's lining was torn at one shoulder seam. He felt like an imposter before he even walked through the door. Chen met him in the lobby personally, already in motion, talking into a wireless earbud while simultaneously gesturing for Marcus to follow. "Tell them Thursday at the latest, or we're going with Alpha Bridge instead. Their timeline's more realistic." He pulled the earbud out. "Marcus, Good, follow me. We'll get you set up with HR first, then I want you to meet the team. The team turned out to be 4 people clustered around a standing desk on the second floor, all of them younger than Marcus by at least 5 years. Chen did quick introductions. Priya, senior algorithm developer, Stanford PhD. James, infrastructure specialist, formerly at Google. Lynn, data architect. 2 startups under her belt. And Terence, who'd apparently been Chen's roommate at Berkeley before dropping out and had been with Axiom since day 1. They all smiled politely. None of them looked thrilled. Marcus is joining us to help with the routing optimization, Chen explained. He identified the bottleneck issue we've been fighting all week. Priya's smile tightened microscopically. The one we fixed Friday morning? That was a different bottleneck. Marcus found the core issue Thursday night. Chen seemed oblivious to the temperature drop in the room. Anyway, get him oriented. I have a call with the board in 5 minutes. He was gone before Marcus could say anything. The silence that followed felt like standing in cold water. So, James said finally, leaning back in his chair with studied casualness, Thursday night. That was the night Chen ordered dinner, right? Marcus understood immediately. They knew. Of course they knew. Tech communities were small, and gossip moved faster than code deploys. I was delivering his food, Marcus said. No point in pretending otherwise. He mentioned the problem. I saw something. It was probably just beginner's luck. Beginner's luck? Terence laughed without humor. Right, Chen's paying you $140K for beginner's luck. He told you my salary? Marcus felt heat crawl up his neck. Didn't have to. Standard senior developer rate here. Which is interesting, because usually people who've been delivering food don't start at senior level. Terence wasn't hostile exactly, but he wasn't friendly either. No offense. Where'd you work before Dashquick? Lynn asked. Her tone was more neutral, professionally curious. I taught computer science, community college, adjunct position. And before that? Same thing. Different community college. Priya exchanged a glance with James. Marcus saw the assessment happening, the calculations. No prestigious companies on his resume, no famous startups, no brand names that would impress at parties or look good on LinkedIn. Just teaching, just community colleges, just the unglamorous work of trying to help first-generation students understand recursion. Well, Priya said with forced brightness, let's get you set up with a workstation. Lynn can walk you through our current codebase, show you where everything lives. The next 4 hours were a master class in polite exclusion. Lynn showed him the repositories, the documentation, the ticketing system, all the mechanical necessities of the job. But when James and Terence started debugging a production issue around 11 a.m., their conversation happened in shorthand, referencing projects and people Marcus had never heard of. When Priya went to lunch, she didn't invite him. When someone made a joke about a competing company's failed product launch, everyone laughed except Marcus, who didn't have the context to understand why it was funny. By 2 p.m., Marcus had read through approximately 3,000 lines of code and contributed exactly 0. He'd opened his mouth twice to ask questions, then closed it, not wanting to reveal how much he didn't know. At 3:30, Chen appeared at his desk. How's it going? Fine, Marcus lied. Chen gave him a sharp look that said he wasn't fooled, but didn't press. Good. Listen, I need you to sit in on a meeting with our product team in 15 minutes. They're asking for features that I'm pretty sure will break our architecture, and I need someone who can explain why in terms they'll understand. That was always Derek's job. Derek must have been the developer who quit. But since you used to teach, I figure you're good at breaking down complex concepts. The meeting was in a glass-walled conference room on the 3rd floor. 8 people sat around a table, most of them with MacBooks open, half listening, while a woman at the head of the table presented a slide deck about user-requested features for the next quarter. And the biggest request by far is real-time analytics on the dashboard, she was saying. Users want to see their data flows updating live, not with a 30-second delay. Chen jumped in before Marcus had even sat down. That's going to murder our server costs. Marcus explained why. 8 pairs of eyes turned to him. Marcus hadn't even seen the product dashboard. He didn't know their server architecture. He didn't know what he was supposed to say. But he did know computing resources. He'd spent years teaching students why their poorly optimized code made their laptops overheat. Real-time analytics means constant queries to the database, Marcus said slowly, thinking it through as he spoke. With your user base. What, 30,000 active users? That's 30,000 queries hitting the database every second, all asking for updated information. You'd need to massively scale your infrastructure to handle that load, and even then, most of those queries would be returning identical data because most data doesn't actually change second to second. You'd be spending money to tell people the same thing you told them 1 second ago. The woman presenting frowned. But users want real time. They think they want real time. What they actually want is to feel like they have current information. A 15-second refresh that feels responsive will satisfy 90% of users and cost you a fraction of the infrastructure investment. And the other 10%? Someone asked. Build a premium tier, real-time analytics for enterprise customers who actually need it and will pay for it. Everyone else gets 15-second refresh and doesn't know the difference. The room went quiet. Then Chen grinned. See, this is why I hired him. Next slide. The meeting continued, but Marcus barely tracked it. He was too busy processing what had just happened. He'd been useful, more than useful. He'd solved a problem. Not a code problem, but a thinking problem, which was arguably harder. When the meeting ended, Chen pulled him aside in the hallway. That was good, really good. You have a way of explaining things that doesn't make people feel stupid for not knowing them. Derek was brilliant, but he made everyone feel like idiots. You're better at the translation between tech and human. I still don't know most of your code base, Marcus admitted. You will. Give it time. Chen checked his phone, grimaced at whatever he saw. I have to jump on another call. But we're doing a team dinner Thursday, everyone on the dev team, plus partners, if people want to bring them. You should come. It's at Tamarine, 7 o'clock. Bring someone if you want. Marcus didn't have someone to bring. Rachel, his ex-wife, had remarried last year to a finance guy who worked in San Francisco and actually made it home for dinner. He hadn't been on a date since the divorce was finalized 3 years ago, but he said, "Sounds good," because what else was he supposed to say? That night he called Simone. It was almost 9, which meant she'd be finishing homework or, more likely, watching TikToks while pretending to finish homework. "Hey, baby girl." "Dad, oh my God, Mum told me about your new job. You're working for some billionaire. I'm working for his company. He's not like my boss. There are other people. Still, that's so cool. Does he have, like, a mansion?" Marcus thought about the Atherton house, about the whiteboard and the floor-to-ceiling windows. "Pretty much, yeah." "Are you going to be rich now?" The question hit differently than she probably meant it. "I'm going to be more stable, which is good. It means I can visit more often. Maybe you could come down some weekends, stay with me." In the same studio apartment. Simone's skepticism was audible. "I'm going to look for a better place, maybe a 2-bedroom, somewhere you'd actually want to hang out." They talked for another 20 minutes, mostly Simone telling him about drama with her friends and some project she was doing for English class. Marcus half listened, just enjoying the sound of her voice, the reminder that he was still a person outside of work, outside of the constant evaluation he felt at the office. After they hung up, he opened his laptop and pulled up the Axiom codebase. If he was going to survive this, he needed to catch up, fast. He worked until 2 a.m., reading through documentation, tracing function calls, building a mental map of how everything connected. The code was elegant in places, messy in others, the fingerprints of multiple developers over several years. He found sections that made him wince, inefficiencies that probably didn't matter at current scale, but would become problems as they grew. He started a document, observations and potential improvements. Small things, mostly. Comments where the code was unclear, functions that could be simplified. Nothing revolutionary, just the accumulated knowledge of someone who'd spent years helping students write cleaner code. The next morning, Terence saw the document. Marcus had left it open on his screen while getting coffee, and when he came back, Terence was at his desk, scrolling through it. "You wrote this?" Terence asked. Marcus's first instinct was to apologize, to explain that he wasn't criticizing anyone's work, just making notes for himself. But something in Terence's tone stopped him. "Yeah, just observations. Stuff I noticed while reading through everything." Terence scrolled to a section about the database query optimization. "This is actually, yeah, okay, this is good. Can you send me this? I want to show it to the team." That afternoon's stand-up meeting had a different energy. Priya actually asked his opinion on a caching strategy. James requested he review a pull request before it went to production. Lynn invited him to lunch. "You're making us look bad," she said over Vietnamese sandwiches at a place 2 blocks from the office. But she was smiling when she said it. 2 days, and you've already found a dozen things we should have caught. I'm just bringing fresh eyes. You've all been looking at this code for so long, you probably see right past the small stuff. Derek used to do that, see everything wrong with everyone's code and announce it like he was doing us a favor, except he made you feel like you were an idiot for not seeing it yourself. Lynn took a bite of her sandwich, chewed thoughtfully. "You don't do that. You explain things like they're just interesting puzzles, not mistakes. It's different. I taught for 8 years. You learn pretty fast that making students feel stupid just makes them stop asking questions." "Well, it works. Even Terence likes you, and Terence doesn't like anyone Chen hires without consulting him first." She paused. "How did Chen find you anyway? The whole delivery driver thing, that's true." Marcus nodded. "Delivered his dinner. He was working on that routing algorithm. I saw something he'd missed." "That's insane. Like movie plot insane." "Yeah, well, real life's weird sometimes." They walked back to the office through Stanford's campus, cutting through the quad where students clustered on the grass, despite the November chill. Marcus used to love this part of teaching, the campus environment, the energy of people learning. He'd never gotten that at the community college, which was mostly commuters rushing between work and class. "You think you'll stay?" Lynn asked as they approached the office building. "At Axiom? Yeah. I mean, it's a good gig, don't get me wrong, but it's also a lot. Chen's brilliant, but he's demanding, and the hours can be insane when we're close to a deadline." Marcus thought about his studio apartment, about delivering food until 1 a.m. "I've worked worse." Thursday's dinner at Tamarine turned out to be 12 people around a long table, expensive cocktails and family-style Vietnamese food. The kind of meal where someone casually mentioned the bill was $800 and everyone just split it without blinking. Marcus did the math in his head. His share would be about $67, which was what he used to make in 5 deliveries. He paid it without flinching. But when he got home that night, he transferred money from savings to checking to cover the difference. Around 10 p.m., after the second round of drinks, Priya leaned across the table toward him. "Okay, I have to ask, what was it like, delivering food in the same neighborhood where you're now working?" The table went quiet. Everyone was suddenly very interested in their drinks. "Humbling, Marcus said honestly. You drive up to these houses, hand someone their dinner, and then you go home to a place smaller than their garage. It makes you aware of distance. Distance between where you are and where they are, not just money, opportunity, luck, all of it. Chen, who'd been quiet most of the dinner, set down his glass. You know what the Valley's best at? Pretending distance doesn't exist. Everyone here acts like it's pure meritocracy, like the only thing that matters is how smart you are or how hard you work. But that's bullshit. It matters who you know, where you went to school, whether you had parents who could support you while you worked on your startup for free. He looked directly at Marcus. It matters if someone happens to order lobster rolls on the exact night you deliver them. James laughed uncomfortably. Are we getting philosophical? I'm getting honest. Chen signaled for another drink. Marcus got lucky, but he also worked his ass off for years doing a job that nobody values until suddenly someone needs to understand how to teach code to people who don't already know it. That's worth something. That's worth more than we pay for it. The conversation moved on to safer topics. Product launches, industry gossip, plans for Thanksgiving. But Marcus kept thinking about what Chen had said, about distance and luck, and the way the Valley pretended its hierarchies were earned rather than circumstantial. When he got home that night, there was an email from his ex-wife. Subject line, Simone's school fees. He opened it already, knowing what it would say. The private school in Sacramento, where Simone had just started 8th grade, had raised their tuition. Rachel's husband could cover most of it, the email explained. But they needed Marcus to contribute an additional $400 a month to his child support. Could he manage that, with his old salary? No, but now with $140 a year, he typed back. Not a problem. I'll update the payment starting next month. Hit send. Felt something loosen in his chest that had been tight for years. By the end of his second month at Axiom, Marcus had a new apartment. 2 bedrooms, 2nd floor, in Mountain View instead of Redwood City. Simone came to visit the first weekend of December, and for the first time in 3 years, she had her own room in his place. Not just a couch or an air mattress, but an actual room with a bed and a desk and space for her things. It's so weird seeing you in a real apartment, she said, dropping her backpack on the floor. Not like bad weird, just different. Marcus understood. He felt different too. He'd bought furniture, actual furniture, not curbside finds or Goodwill specials. He had a coffee maker that cost $200. He'd taken Simone to dinner at a nice restaurant the previous night, the kind where the waiter described every ingredient in each dish, and he hadn't checked the prices before ordering. But the thing about climbing was that you could feel the distance you'd traveled without necessarily feeling like you'd arrived. At work, the launch deadline was approaching. February 15th, less than 3 months away. The routing algorithm Marcus had debugged his first night turned out to be one piece of a much larger system, and every piece had to work perfectly for the product to function. Axiom's entire business model depended on this launch. They'd promised investors, signed contracts with early customers, built a company narrative around being faster and more efficient than their competitors. The pressure manifested in different ways. Chen stopped sleeping normal hours, sending Slack messages at 3 a.m. and expecting responses. Priya developed a stress cough that lingered for weeks. James started keeping a bottle of Tums on his desk, and Marcus, who'd spent years teaching students that work-life balance mattered, found himself working 70-hour weeks and telling himself it was temporary. It was a Wednesday in mid-January when everything came apart. Marcus had been debugging a data synchronization issue all morning, the kind of problem that felt like trying to find a single broken pixel in a 4K image. He'd finally traced it to an interaction between 2 systems that should have been isolated but weren't, and he was writing up a fix when Chen appeared at his desk. "Conference room, now. Everyone." The development team filed into the glass-walled room, along with people from product, marketing and sales. Chen stood at the head of the table, his expression unreadable. "We have a problem," he said without preamble. "Alpha Bridge just announced their new platform. They're launching January 30th. Alpha Bridge was their main competitor, the industry leader they were trying to displace. Their launch timeline had been 6 months behind Axiom's. At least that's what everyone believed. Apparently, everyone was wrong." Priya pulled up the announcement on her laptop. The room watched in silence as the promotional video played, showcasing features eerily similar to what Axiom had been building. Not identical, it never was, but close enough to eliminate their first-mover advantage. "They beat us," Terence said. "How did they beat us?" Chen's jaw tightened. "Because they had 8 months to build this, while we were still in planning. And because Derek, our former lead developer, apparently had some conversations he shouldn't have had before he quit." "Corporate espionage?" Lynn's voice was sharp with anger. "Non-compete violation, more likely. Doesn't matter now. What matters is we have a choice. Delay our launch and risk being seen as the copy, or accelerate our timeline and launch before they do." "Before January 30th? That's 2 weeks. James looked around the table. "We're not ready. We'd have to cut half our testing phase. And even then, we cut the testing phase to 1 week. We work around the clock. We launch January 28th, 2 days before them." Chen's voice was flat, the tone of someone who'd already made the decision and was just informing everyone else. "I know what I'm asking. I know it's unreasonable. But if we don't do this, everything we've built for the last 2 years becomes irrelevant. Alpha Bridge has the market share, the name recognition, the trust. Our only advantage was being first. If we lose that, we lose everything." Marcus thought about the code base, about the dozens of small issues they'd documented but not fixed because there was time later. Time to do it right. Time to be thorough. 1 week of testing meant those issues wouldn't get fixed. It meant shipping code they knew wasn't perfect. It meant hoping nothing broke in production. "What happens if something goes wrong?" Marcus asked. "If we launch with bugs we didn't catch? We fix them in real time. We have support team ready to handle issues. We do what every startup does. We iterate." "Udi." Chen looked directly at him. "I know it's not ideal. I know it violates every principle of good development practice, but sometimes you don't get ideal. Sometimes you get 2 bad choices and you pick the one that gives you a chance." The meeting ended with assignments. Marcus's job was to review the entire routing system one more time, check for critical failures, mark anything that could wait for a post-launch patch. He had 3 days. He worked 16-hour days, took his laptop home, worked through meals, cancelled his weekend plans with Simone. When she called Friday night to ask if he was still coming to Sacramento, he had to tell her no. "You're turning into Mom's husband," Simone said. Her voice was flat, carefully neutral. "Always working, always busy. This is different. This is temporary. It's always temporary, until it's not." She hung up before he could explain. He stared at his phone, wanting to call back, but the code review was due in 6 hours, and he was only 2/3 finished. He made his deadline. Everyone made their deadlines. On January 27th at 11 p.m., they deployed to production. The system went live at midnight, January 28th. For the first 2 hours, everything worked perfectly. At 2:17 a.m., the monitoring system started showing errors. Not many, just a trickle. Data requests timing out. A few users reporting slow response times. By 3:45 a.m., the trickle had become a flood. Half the platform was non-responsive. Users were getting error messages. And the support team, which was supposed to handle minor issues, was drowning. Marcus was awake because he'd never gone to sleep. He'd been watching the monitoring dashboard from his apartment, unable to relax, waiting for something to go wrong. When the alert started, he wasn't surprised. He was almost relieved. At least now he knew where the disaster would come from. His phone rang. Chen. I'm looking at it, Marcus said before Chen could speak. Can you fix it? Marcus was already pulling up the error logs, tracing the failures back to their source. I think so. Give me 20 minutes. The problem was exactly what he'd feared, one of the issues they documented but not fixed, interacting with production-level data loads in a way testing hadn't caught. The fix was simple. A few lines of code, a redeployment, but simple didn't mean easy, not when every second of downtime meant lost customer trust. He wrote the fix in 10 minutes, tested it locally in 5, deployed it in 3. By 4:30 a.m., the errors had stopped. By 5:00 a.m., the system was stable. By 6:00 a.m., Chen was in the office, Marcus was in the office, and the whole development team was in the office, running post-mortem analysis on what went wrong and what else might go wrong. They found 6 more potential issues, fixed 4 of them by end of day, documented the other 2 as known limitations they'd address in the next patch. Alpha Bridge launched January 30th as planned. Their launch was smooth, professional, with all the polish of a company that had taken their time. Axiom's launch was messy, rushed, marked by that first-night crash that tech blogs covered with headlines like "New Startup Stumbles Out of Gate" and "Axiom Systems' Rocky Debut Raises Questions." But they were first, and in the valley, being first mattered. The following week, Marcus got a call from his daughter's school. Simone had been caught skipping class. When her teacher asked why, she'd said something about her dad being too busy to care, so why should she bother with school? Rachel called him that night, her voice tight with controlled anger. "I know you have a new job. I know it's demanding. But she's 13, Marcus. She needs to know you're still her father, not just someone who sends child support checks." "I am her father." "Then act like it. Come up here. Take her to dinner. I don't care if it's the middle of the week and you have work tomorrow. Show up." He drove to Sacramento that Wednesday, skipped work entirely, took Simone to her favorite taco place. They sat across from each other in a booth with cracked vinyl seats, and for the first 10 minutes she wouldn't look at him. "I'm sorry," Marcus said. "About missing last weekend. About being absent. You got a good job. That's what you wanted, right?" Her voice was hard, older than 13. "It's what I needed, so I could take care of you better, so I could be more stable. You were stable when you were teaching. You were always there. Now you're just," she gestured vaguely, "somewhere else." She wasn't wrong. He had been more present when he was teaching, when his hours were predictable and his stress levels were manageable. He'd traded that presence for financial security, and he'd told himself it was worth it. But sitting across from his daughter, seeing the hurt she was trying to hide, he wasn't sure anymore. "What do you need from me?" Marcus asked. "Tell me what would make this better." Simone thought about it, pushing rice around her plate with a fork. "I don't know, just don't forget I exist. Don't turn into one of those dads who's always on their phone or always talking about work." "I won't," Marcus said, and meant it, and had no idea how to keep that promise while still doing his job. February brought a cold snap to the Bay Area, real cold, the kind that made the palm trees look confused. Marcus started running in the mornings before work, not for exercise, but for thinking time, for the 30 minutes when his brain could process something other than code. Axiom's launch numbers were good. Not spectacular, but good. They'd captured about 15% of Alpha Bridge's market share in the first month, which Chen called a beachhead. Customers liked the interface, loved the speed, tolerated the occasional bug. The tech blogs that had criticized their rocky start were now writing pieces about their resilience and adaptability. Marcus had been promoted, not officially, no title change, no formal announcement. But Chen started bringing him to meetings with investors, asking his opinion on strategic decisions, treating him less like a developer and more like a partner. With the promotion came an understanding. This was his life now. 70-hour weeks weren't temporary. They were the cost of admission. He tried to balance it. Scheduled dinner with Simone every Wednesday, made it a fixed appointment he wouldn't cancel. Started saying no to weekend work, or at least limiting it to a few hours on Sunday mornings. But balance in tech wasn't really balance. It was just controlled imbalance, prioritizing frantically while pretending you had things under control. In mid-March, Lynn quit. She gave her notice on a Tuesday, apologized for the timing, explained that she'd been offered a position at a startup in LA where her partner lived, fully remote, better hours, slightly less pay, but significantly better quality of life. "You should think about that," she told Marcus on her last day. They were having coffee at the place near campus, the same Vietnamese sandwich shop where she'd asked if he'd stay. Quality of life. "I know Chen's invested in you. I know the money's good, but you're going to burn out if you keep this pace." "I'm fine," Marcus said automatically. "You look exhausted. You're here before everyone else and you leave after everyone else. When's the last time you took a day off?" He couldn't remember. December, maybe, before the accelerated launch deadline. "Take a vacation," Lynn said. "A real one. Go somewhere with Simone. Be a person, not just a developer." After she left, Marcus sat in the office and looked at his calendar. Every day packed with meetings, code reviews, debugging sessions. He tried to imagine inserting a vacation into this schedule and couldn't see where it would fit. That night, Simone video called him, which she rarely did unless something was wrong. "So, I have to tell you something," she said. She was in her room at her mom's house, sitting on her bed with the awkward posture of someone delivering difficult news. "Mom and Dave are moving to Seattle for his job." Marcus felt something drop in his stomach. "When?" "End of summer, before school starts." She wasn't looking at the camera, was picking at her bedspread instead. "They asked if I wanted to come live with you, finish high school down there, instead of starting over in Seattle." The question Marcus should have asked was what Simone wanted, but the question that came out was, "What did you tell them?" "I said I'd think about it. I mean, I like my school here. My friends are here, but also—" She finally looked at the camera. "I don't know if you want me, like actually want me living with you, not just visiting every other weekend. You're so busy all the time." "I want you," Marcus said immediately. "Of course I want you. But would you have time for actual parenting, not just like existing in the same apartment while you work all day?" The question was devastating in its clarity. She'd seen exactly what his life had become and was asking if there was room in it for her. "I would make time," Marcus said, and as he said it, he realized he was promising something he wasn't sure he could deliver. Not without changing everything about how he worked. Not without setting boundaries with Chen, with the team, with the company that had given him a second chance at a real career. They talked for another hour. Logistics mostly, schools in Mountain View, whether she'd need to change anything about custody arrangements, how often she'd visit Rachel, but underneath the logistics was the real conversation. Would he choose her? Would he choose differently than he'd chosen the last 6 months? After they hung up, Marcus pulled up his laptop and started typing an email to Chen. Then stopped. Started again. Stopped. What was he trying to say? That he needed better hours? That he was burning out? That he had a daughter who needed him more than Axiom's code needed debugging? Chen had given him this job when no one else would have. Had paid for him to start his master's degree. He was taking online classes 2 nights a week now, slowly working toward the credential he'd abandoned years ago. Had trusted him with responsibilities beyond his experience level. Asking for less felt like betrayal. But not being there for Simone was a different kind of betrayal, one he'd live with longer. He wrote the email. "Can we talk tomorrow? Need to discuss some schedule changes. Hit send before he could reconsider. Chen's office was smaller than you'd expect for a billionaire. Just a desk, 2 chairs, and a whiteboard covered in notes that probably made sense to him. When Marcus knocked the next morning, Chen waved him in without looking up from his laptop. "Schedule changes," Chen said. "You taking a vacation?" "Not exactly. My daughter might be moving in with me, full-time, not just visits." Chen finally looked up. "Congratulations. That's great. It means I need to be home by 6. Most days anyway, and I can't do weekend work unless it's an absolute emergency." The office was quiet for a long moment. Chen's expression was unreadable. "Okay," Chen said finally. Marcus had prepared arguments, justifications, explanations. The simple acceptance threw him. "Okay. You're good at this job, Marcus. Really good. But you're not going to be good at it if you hate your life. And you're definitely not going to be good at it if you're resenting the job because it's costing you your relationship with your daughter." Chen leaned back in his chair. "I worked 80-hour weeks for 5 years building this company. Missed my sister's wedding, missed my dad's 60th birthday, missed a lot of things I can't get back. The company succeeded, but I'm not sure I did. I don't want to let the team down. The team will adapt. We'll hire another developer. We'll distribute the workload differently. What we won't do is pretend that being a good father and being a good employee are mutually exclusive." Chen pulled up his calendar. 6 p.m. hard stop. No weekend work except emergencies. We'll make it work. And Marcus, bring Simone by the office sometime. I'd like to meet her. Marcus left the office feeling something he hadn't felt in months. Relief. Not the relief of solving a bug, but the deeper relief of being seen as a whole person, not just a resource. He called Simone that night. "Tell your mum I'm in. You can live with me. We'll make it work." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." The next few months were logistics. Enrolling Simone in school, negotiating custody arrangements, converting his second bedroom from an office/guest room into an actual teenage girl's room. Marcus hired a junior developer to take some of his workload, started delegating more, trusting the team more, accepting that his value wasn't in working the most hours, but in working the right hours. Axiom kept growing. They landed a major contract with a logistics company, then another with a financial services firm. The rocky launch became a case study in agile response and rapid iteration. AlphaBridge tried to compete on features, but Axiom competed on adaptability, on being the company that listened to customers and moved fast. In May, Chen sold a portion of the company to a private equity firm for $300 million. Axiom's value increased dramatically overnight, and with it, the value of the equity packages Chen had given to early employees. Marcus's shares, which he'd mostly ignored because he didn't fully understand them, were suddenly worth $2. $3 million. He stared at the number in the email from Chen's CFO, trying to make it feel real. He'd been worried about rent increases. Now he could buy a house, could pay for Simone's college, could stop calculating whether he could afford things. But the number also felt dangerous. It felt like a measurement of worth, like proof that the last 6 months of sacrifice had been justified, and he wasn't sure that was true. Simone moved in on August 15th, the week before school started. Marcus had spent the previous weekend painting her room the color she'd picked, a blue-gray she'd seen on Pinterest. They assembled furniture from IKEA together, Marcus reading instructions while Simone sorted screws, both of them laughing when they realized they'd built the dresser backward and had to start over. Her first day of school, Marcus drove her. She was nervous, quiet in the passenger seat, chewing her thumbnail the way she did when anxious. "You're going to be fine," Marcus said. "Everyone already has friends. I'm starting in 9th grade. That's the worst time." "You've started new schools before?" "Not like this. Not where I'm living with my dad instead of my mom. People are going to think that's weird." Marcus pulled into the drop-off line, put the car in park, turned to face her. It is weird. Weird can also be good. And if anyone asks, you tell them your dad got a job here and your mom moved to Seattle for her husband's job and you chose to stay with me. That's the truth. Nothing weird about choosing where you want to be. Simone nodded, not convinced but willing to try. She grabbed her backpack, started to get out, then stopped. Thanks, Dad, for making space for me. You don't take up space, baby girl. You create it. He watched her walk into the school, shoulders squared, and felt that mixture of pride and terror that seemed to define parenting. Then he drove to work, to the office where he was now a senior developer with equity worth millions, where he worked reasonable hours and took lunch breaks and left by 6 to pick up his daughter. 3 months later, on a Thursday in November, Marcus delivered food for the first time in over a year. Not for money, for memory. He'd signed up for a single dash-quick shift on his day off just to see what it felt like. The app had changed. The interface was different. The pay structure was different. But the core experience was the same. Drive to restaurant, pick up food, drive to address, drop off food, repeat. He took 6 deliveries in 3 hours, made about $80 before expenses, and felt the familiar stress of calculating whether he'd make enough to justify the gas money. His last delivery was in Atherton, though not to Chen's house, to a different estate, similarly large, similarly perfect. A young guy answered the door, barely looked at Marcus, took the food without tipping. Marcus drove back through those quiet streets where streetlights were expensive and unnecessary, where the houses held people who'd won the lottery of birth or brains or luck. He thought about Chen's comment at dinner, about distance and pretending it didn't exist. The distance was still there. Marcus had crossed it, but crossing didn't erase it. He'd always remember what it felt like to deliver food to houses he couldn't afford, to calculate gas money, to choose between groceries and rent. But he'd also remember that distance could be crossed, that delivery drivers could become developers, that teaching community college could lead to debugging Billionaire's code. That luck mattered, but so did preparation, and so did being ready when lobster rolls needed delivering. He drove home to his apartment, where Simone was doing homework at the kitchen table. She looked up when he came in. "How was the dash-quick shift?" "Informative." "How was school?" "Fine, we're reading The Great Gatsby in English. It's about this guy who's obsessed with being rich and it ruins his life." Marcus laughed. Subtle. "Ms. Peterson asked if anyone in class knew someone who'd made a lot of money. I almost told her about you." "Why didn't you?" "Because you didn't make a lot of money. You made enough. There's a difference." She went back to her homework, and Marcus stood there in his kitchen, in his 2-bedroom apartment in Mountain View, and thought about enough. About how he'd spent years not having it, then months having too much of some things and not enough of others, and now, finally, maybe, finding some kind of balance. His phone buzzed. Chen sending a link to a news article. Alpha Bridge announces major layoffs after Q3 losses. Below it, Chen's message, "We're not just surviving, we're winning. Thank you for being part of this." Marcus sent back a thumbs up, then put his phone down, went to the fridge, started thinking about dinner, called to Simone about whether she wanted pasta or stir-fry. The code would still be there tomorrow. The company would still need debugging. The valley would still have its distances and hierarchies and pretensions of meritocracy. But tonight, he was here. His daughter was here. And that was enough. Simone chose stir-fry, and Marcus started cutting vegetables while she told him about the test she'd aced in biology and the fight her friend had gotten into with another friend over something involving TikTok that Marcus didn't fully understand. He listened, asked questions, let the rhythm of normal life settle around them like code compiling cleanly. All the functions finding their places, the algorithm of living, executing one line at a time. Outside, fog was rolling in from the bay, turning the streetlights into soft halos. Somewhere in Atherton, Chen was probably still working, staring at whiteboards, solving problems that would make headlines. Somewhere in Redwood City, someone was delivering food, calculating gas money, hoping for better tips. Somewhere in Sacramento, Rachel was packing boxes for Seattle, starting over in a different city. And here, in this kitchen in Mountain View, Marcus was teaching his daughter how to mince garlic properly, explaining that the smaller you cut it, the more flavor it releases. Small lessons, ordinary moments, the kind of thing you couldn't code, couldn't optimize, couldn't debug when it broke. You could only show up for it, be present for it, choose it. He chose it.